Welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo, and have we got a packed show for tonight? Yes, we have, Hex.
Indeed, we'll be reviewing the post-apocalyptic survival game, I Am Alive, even though I spent most of my time in that game dead.
Plus, the standalone spin-off game, Alan Wake's American Nightmare, takes a different path for the franchise, but is it the right one? Plus, Goose has been to Melbourne to check out the Blip Festival, the biggest chiptune event ever to be held in Australia.
But first, can you guess the game for this week? Go read the news, Barjo.
Okay, Hex.
Go, get out of here.
The massively multiplayer RPG Rift has set a world record for the most in-game marriages in a 24-hour period.
A healthy marriage can be the foundation of a happy and prosperous life.
21,879 couples made their virtual vows in the special Valentine's Day attempt.
Ladies and gentlemen, cheers for the couple.
BioWare writer Jennifer Hepler has been labelled as sewage in a deplorable case of online bullying. A post on social media site Reddit called Hepler the cancer that is killing BioWare, in reference to comments she made in a 2006 interview where she stated she would like to skip combat sections in many games so she could simply enjoy the story. The Reddit post set off a flurry of hate-filled emails, Twitter posts, and phone calls personally attacking Hepler. We spoke to Robin the Berg from BioWare about the incident.
And she's a very, very lovely woman and very, very talented writer, and to see her attacked for no reason by a complete stranger that doesn't know her was very, very hurtful.
In response, BioWare donated $1,000 Canadian to Bullying Canada in Jennifer's name. Several extra studios have joined forces with Team Ico to help finish development of the highly anticipated PS3 exclusive The Last Guardian. Sony's game design head Shuhei Yoshida confirmed the extra studio's involvement in an interview with tech publication Wired. Yoshida confirmed God of War creators Sony Santa Monica are providing assistance along with teams based in the US and UK.
Survival and survival horror games are the flavour of the month, and later on in the show we'll be taking a look at the downloadable title I Am Alive. But right now, let's get to Alan Wake's American Nightmare.
Hex, if there's one thing Alan Wake knows, it's that you can never trust anyone in the dark.
Barjo, are we really doing this again?
Obviously, it's tradition.
Get back in your chair.
All right.
I'm gonna tell you a secret. There are places in our world where fiction and dreams can come true.
American Nightmare is a downloadable game from the same developer as the original Alan Wake. It's not a sequel, it's more like a spin-off game where Alan is stuck in his own fiction. He's hot on the tails of his doppelganger, Mr. Scratch, who is taking over his life in the real world. They've purposefully made this feel like a Twilight Zone episode, right to the extent where they imitate the same voice of those classic TV shows.
If he's aware of the absurdity of arming oneself with a few sentences and standing against a power that can pierce time itself, he doesn't show it.
Hex, as a huge fan of those classic black and white Twilight Zone episodes, I don't know, I felt like this might have been the wrong choice here. It felt less of a homage and more of an uninspired copy.
Yeah, the original game really had its own identity, you know, it was so distinct. It felt like a good Hitchcock movie, or as you said, an episode of Twilight Zone. But this one just, I don't know, it just had a different tone, and I think they had more limitations when creating it because it was a downloadable title, and well, fans will notice the difference straight away. Yeah,
this is definitely all about the action, and the action is solid, but it is missing that wonderful setup for each section that the original game had. Plus, Alan Wake still runs like a big herpaderp. There are three main locations in this game: the Motel Highway, the Observatory, and the Drive-In. Each is quite large and open, so you have a decent amount of freedom. As you walk around completing objectives, you'll run into some strange characters who are part of the plot you're currently involved in.
Are you gonna hurt me now? 'Cause you should.
Lady, you got darkness on the brain.
Very little of this plot makes sense. I found it really hard to follow, and all of these characters are really just there to give you a collect mission, then you go back to them and go off and do another one.
I'm gonna take care of this. Try to stay calm.
But of course, along the way, you'll have heaps of exciting moments fighting the Taken.
Wait. Whoa!
These are people who have the darkness all over them and you need to burn it off with your torch before you can take them down. I still found all of this combat engaging, Hex.
Yeah, and the camera has this wonderfully loose feel to it. And yeah, those levels were a lot wider than I was expecting, so I thought the action had a really good flow to it. Also, when you dodge an enemy, those slow motion effects are just thrilling to watch. Such responsive controls, Barjo.
Yeah, and everything just works and feels right. Although, I think it's a fair criticism to say that it's not much fun being warned every time an enemy is approaching.
You're like a little hamster in a wheel.
But I do like it how the camera pulls back and the music kicks in and makes everything all stressful. And all the lighting effects and flares going off make every fight spectacular to watch. And you do feel awesome when you're gunning down that last purged demon. Yeah, take it, demon.
Possessed furniture and objects return, but overall I thought there was a really nice variety to the enemies. In particular, I really liked that flock of birds that transform into scary golems.
By the end, Hex, I was completely disappointed with this game. It's only 4 hours long, which is okay for a downloadable title such as this, but so much of it is repeat content. And the way they get away with it is they call it a time loop.
Well, here we go again.
You're stuck in this time loop, which is a way for them to send you back to these areas again and again.
I remember our previous encounters very clearly now.
By the second time loop, I was sick of it.
Let me just try one more time at the risk of sounding like a broken record.
By the third time loop, I was over this game. You're much better off with the original Alan Wake if you haven't played it, or even the DLC that came out, which was quite good.
Yeah, I agree with you, Barjo, on this one. And I also thought it was quite easy, right until the very end. There's just ammo everywhere. I mean, the only saving grace is that wave mode, which is quite stressful and really features some nice environments.
Morning brings salvation.
And it's just a shame that it really wasn't in the single-player campaign. Barjo, lightsabers have nothing to do with Alan Wake. Sit back down. Ow!
I think what's happened here is they've taken away all the stuff that made Alan Wake so unique, all that wonderful storytelling, and that's the stuff I love the most about the game, so I didn't have a very good time here. If that wave mode had some sort of multiplayer component, I'd be all over this, but as it stands, I'm giving it 5 out of 10 rubber chickens. Nice flannel physics, though.
I'm giving it 6 out of 10. Ow! Stop hitting me with it!
Good game.
Remember this?
PlayStation 2.
One of our favourite clips of all time. That's Dave Callan, comedian and committed gamer.
And when we saw some very passionate tweets about the latest SoulCalibur game from Dave, we thought it was only fitting to invite him on the show to share his very passionate thoughts.
So take it away, Dave.
SoulCalibur is my favorite game series, possibly because I look a bit like the Dread Pirate Cervantes. Okay, I look a little bit like Edgemaster as well. In '96, Soul Edge appeared at my local arcade, and I should know I practically paid for the damn thing in $2 coins. Then Namco released version 1.5 for the home console market, calling it Soul Blade, and I should know my girlfriend bought me a copy, then never saw me again. Then Namco rebooted the entire franchise, calling it SoulCalibur, and releasing it exclusively on Sega Dreamcast, and I should know I'm one of the 5 people who actually had one. So we're up to SoulCalibur 5, technically Soul Blade 6, more technically Soul Edge 6.5. So how has the franchise held up over the last 17 years? Well, the good news is this is still the best 3D weapon simulator there is going. However, that's not saying much since the only competition is the Deadliest Warrior series, which handles like a limping tortoise in mud. And of course, Battle Arena Toshinden, which hasn't had a game out since the year of our Lord 1997. The fighting is as awesome as ever, thanks to an amazingly smooth engine, rendering the action at 60 frames per second. Also improved is character customization mode, which gives you thousands and thousands of possible combinations of stuff to make the character you want. Want to make a character that looks like this? Probably not, but you could. The characters this time around are looking a little bit more stylized, almost anime, which is good. But that's about all the improvements for this edition. Single players will feel gypped by this installment.
Oh, by the way, you said you were all alone, but you were wrong. You have a family.
In story mode, 90% of the cutscenes are not CGI, but storyboards in glorious sepia.
Battle 1. Fight.
Story mode forces you to play as Sophitia's children, Patroklos and Pyrrha, who use her moves list, which is not the most dynamic or strategic. They could have chosen a more interesting character's descendants. Imagine the offspring of Valdo and Yoshimitsu, for example, or Astaroth and the lizard lady woman thing. Obviously, one of the most important questions when playing any new SoulCalibur game is, what the hell is Valdo going to be wearing this time? Creepy. If you go for button mashing, something spectacular will eventually happen, but I think the real joy in a game like this is picking one character and learning all their moves and combos, and then the game really takes on a new dimension. The character I've picked and stuck with since Soul Edge is Mitsurugi.
My blade is angry. Want a taste?
An incredible no-nonsense samurai badass. His name, Hishiro Mitsurugi, literally translates into English as Divine Sword Calm Death Man, which pretty much sums him up.
A pointless fight! How dare you waste my time?
The bonus character this time around is celebrated Renaissance clergy stabber Ezio from Assassin's Creed. This is a good turn. Ezio, I find, fits into the game's historical setting a lot better than previous guest characters like Spawn or Yoda.
There is no trial.
Ezio is, if anything, a little overpowered. As we know, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, or in this case, a sword to a crossbow, hidden blade, hidden gun, knife, and longsword fight. That's right, Ezio has 5 weapons, and you never know what is going to come out of those robes. But you know this, it's going to be heaps hurty.
I tried to warn you.
The new characters are quite good, particularly the mysterious Zwei.
You're out of your league, so scram.
Who can summon an interdimensionary robot wolf, which is cool for 3 reasons. 1, it's a robot. 2, it's a wolf. And 3, it's from another freaking dimension. Other stalwarts who've returned have all aged 17 years. Dread Pirate Cervantes and his daughter Ivy. Series favorite Siegfried with his evil counterpart Nightmare. Yoshimitsu, who overlaps with Tekken. And the most inexplicable character of all, Maxi, a flamboyant Japanese rockabilly in an Elvis jumpsuit with nunchucks. The fighting is as good as ever, but a little bit more simple. For example, each character has an ultimate attack or critical edge. Used to be a combination of buttons for each character that was different, and now, as a concession to the casual gamer, they've made it 2 Hadoukens and a right trigger, which kind of is a cop-out. It takes the joy away from the dedicated fan base of achieving character mastery by learning those individual moves.
I'm angry now! Victory!
The backgrounds have reached new heights. Some of them, like Cervantes' exploding pirate boat, are multi-tiered, and playing as Ezio on some of the Dark Souls stages against Nightmare feels like the intersection of 3 of my favorite games. I feel like this installment might be a little bit undercooked. There's no proper endings for characters in arcade mode, and single-player modes are lacking. Ultimately, SoulCalibur V is a bit of a step back for the series. I'm giving it 6 rubber chickens. 7 if you love Ezio.
Do not test me.
Good game. Thanks very much, Dave.
Blip Festival has been showcasing the talent of chiptune artists from around the world since 2006, but recently was held in Australia for the very first time.
And Goose went along.
If gaming culture is all about expression, then the chiptune movement is right at the top. It's all about attitude and freedom, all while celebrating video game history through music. But why should we as gamers get behind this amazing style of music? Chrissy, you're in charge of Blip Festival. Can you tell us what's it all about?
Blip Festival is a celebration of music, chip music, which is basically old consoles and sometimes new consoles as well, combined with computers and modern technology to make amazing music and visuals. It's been going for 6 years this year in New York. It's also happened in Scandinavia, Japan the last couple of years, and this is the first one in Australia.
Maybe some people will gravitate toward it immediately and maybe some won't. They don't really get it. If you take the people who don't get it to a live show, they tend to get it. And I think that there is something about hearing that style of sounds, that sound set, placed in the context of like a live venue, especially one with like just really great sound system, where the energy really comes through that might not necessarily come through for everybody on first listen.
There's the element of the audience, and there's people reacting to what's happening, and it really puts the music at the forefront. A lot of that older chiptune stuff was intended to be background soundtrack for games, whereas this is very much about like capturing people's attention and engaging them rather than scoring something else. So yeah, it's kind of more exciting, more direct.
But the Chiptunes experience isn't only about the music. The visuals also play a big part. What's your job as a visual DJ?
Well, I program the same way that the original games are programmed. It's just that they serve one purpose, is to create any kind of visual art. And then, I'll map buttons just like I'm playing the music. So, the B button may fade something and I'll hit it in time with the beat, or I'll cycle through different transitions. So I'm pretty much programming a game for the sole purpose of creating visual art, and it's kind of the full package. You have audio made on a Game Boy. The visuals also be made on hardware. It's a challenge, and working in those limitations, you end up making some really nice stuff.
If you get someone in there who's really talented doing live visuals and in a way that complements the music being played, it just really does create a much more, I think, immersive and engaging experience for the audience.
How important is something like Blip Fest to the Australian chip music scene?
The amazing thing about Blip Festival is it brings in a lot of international artists, and being the small island that we are, we're sort of isolated from everywhere else, so it really allows people to see the international artists and play on a stage with them as well, which is great.
And speaking of playing on the international stage, do you remember these guys? Last time we met them, they were making chiptunes in their bedrooms, and now they're sharing the limelight with some of the world's best.
Well, it was kind of always an aim. Like, I remember when I was first starting, I ended up finding out about Blip Festival and about these artists who, for me, were the first artists that I'd kind of heard of and seen. It's really about the fact that the Australian community is big enough to actually support this, and it's something that we've been passionate about for a really long time. And it's great now to see other people experiencing it for the first time and realising how fun and kind of involved you can get.
For such a relatively small country compared to some of the other places where it's quite big, like the US and like Japan, we actually have quite a thriving scene.
The Australian chip music scene is typified by, I think, a lot more adventurousness and really a total abandonment of convention.
Every artist in Australia sounds completely different. I think that's because we're all from different backgrounds. I'm from a sort of a metal and jazz background. Other people are from, more IDM and experimental background. That really comes through in our music, and we really express ourselves with our tracks like that.
The celebration of chip music and gaming music on older platforms has gotten to such a point that it's actually started crossing back over into modern games. Like, I could probably rattle off 10 iPhone games that have awesome soundtracks by guys that have written them on Game Boys or Segas or tracked them in some way on a computer that's way too old for you to be doing it. It's coming back. and I think that is having an influence.
With the rise of indie gaming, you're actually seeing quite a lot of opportunities for musicians who maybe don't have big licensing deals or who maybe aren't doing necessarily as commercial work. So there's this interesting meeting of two very independent, very non-commercial scenes collaborating in order to sort of share their audiences to some extent.
Well, now it's time for some true survival gaming with I Am Alive.
Yes, this definitely doesn't fall into the survival horror category, although it does have some tense, suspenseful moments, and you're pretty much always on the defensive. It's a post-apocalyptic environment, the ruined city with scattered, desperate survivors, and nearly everyone is out for themselves. I Am Alive captures all of this just perfectly. You play as an unnamed character who's been separated from his wife and daughter during the disaster, or event as the game calls it, and after finding a note they left in your old apartment, are making your way through the city to try and find them. Much of the story is told through recordings made by him on a little video camera as he documents his search, with some really lovely writing and voice work.
This is a little awkward for me, but if you found this, then that means... Anyway, if you could try to deliver this video recorder to my home.
Well, you start with virtually nothing, but pretty soon you pick up a machete and an empty pistol.
It's a game that strips you of all of your comforts that you're used to in a climbing action-adventure game, and most times you're wandering around with one, maybe two bullets if you're really lucky.
Hey, no more messing around.
I think at one point I had like 4 bullets. Yeah, I know, I was stoked. You know, you value every item in this game so much more, but of course with so little in your arsenal, then you have to resort to whatever means possible to fend off enemies. Threatening them with a pistol they don't know is empty, or waiting till one approaches and hitting them with a surprise melee attack.
I don't think I've ever known true conservation in a game before this one. It just makes every fight so calculated and exciting. You want to try and get through each fight without using any bullets if you can, because just around the corner there could be an even bigger gang of guys just waiting to jump you.
You even know how much trouble you're in? Just take it.
And that bullet may be your only hope of staying alive.
It does become easy to save bullets once you pick up a bow, but you're only given 1 arrow which you can retrieve from corpses. I was like, come on. But you know what? I actually really loved it. The bow does take longer to draw, but if you surprise melee kill one guy at the start, quickly pick off another guy with your arrow, then enter a melee kill for the next guy, you know, you start to get the hang of it. The game is very grey, full of dust and shadows, with always the possibility of enemies lurking around the corner. What did you think of the visual effect, Barjo?
I didn't mind the grey colour palette so much, but I thought they overused those visuals, the graininess, and kind of in that Silent Hill way, but not in a good way. Speaking of Silent Hill, they totally ripped off the map while we're at it.
I know we generally comment on a game's visuals if they are quite dreary or bland or grainy or brown even, but I don't know, here I didn't mind it at all. It really helped set that dreary tone for me. And it really added to the difficulty of traversing the environments, and certain shapes were hard to make out in the fog until you got closer to them. And, you know, that minimalist map was in keeping with the whole survival theme. I mean, the fact is the city has changed. We have no map of its new destroyed state, except for the rough red markings we make on it as we discover each area.
Yeah, I'll admit, making your way through the city is definitely engaging. After the chaos of the event, most of the roads have been blocked by falling debris and buildings are crumbling. You'll be making your way through old train cars and dark subway tunnels.
Yeah, and here's where they introduce some really intense climbing, and with that, a brutal stamina system. Everything above a walk uses up stamina. Running, climbing, jumping, hanging off ledges. And if you're stuck halfway up a wall and running out of stamina, you'll go into extreme effort, where a last furious burst of energy will use up the rest of your stamina, but stop it from regenerating again unless you refuel with something like water or an asthma inhaler. You'll also pick up pitons, which you can use if you need to stop for a rest halfway up a wall, but like everything in this game, they're really scarce.
I love how that music kicks in, you know, as you're using your stamina bar, it just starts going nuts.
Yeah, as soon as you get past halfway, it's like...
Even if you're just running, makes everything stressful.
Now, at first I found this unfairly punishing. In action games, we're used to being able to hang off ledges forever without tiring, but, you know, then I realized it was just a really great device that lends itself towards realism. Some sections were endlessly frustrating, but gosh, so satisfying as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you think about the character, you know, he's just a guy looking for his family, a normal guy, so all of this is quite challenging for him.
Yeah, he's not Nathan Drake.
I've never even fired a gun before. Anyway.
He's not a trained fighter, so he doesn't have superhuman strength. So the game has abandoned some of the things we take for granted in video games for a more realistic approach. We've had it so easy with games like Uncharted. It's nice to have to stop and think about a climb.
Yeah, but you couldn't stop and think about a climb halfway up a wall. You'd run out of stamina. That's what makes it so full on. And you know, this realism is really true for the combat as well. For example, you can't take on more than one enemy at once with just a machete. You know, if you're struggling with one guy, the other guy isn't going to just wait till you're done. He's going to come around and stab you in the back. I mean, that's probably what would happen.
What I loved about these fights, more than anything else, is that they felt really human. You know, it was so stressful just pointing an empty gun at a bunch of guys and trying to work out, what do I do? How do I get out of this situation? And it's really rare to find that in a game.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that all games should be like this. Obviously, we love playing kick-ass action heroes who can fight off hordes of enemies at once. But I think in this instance, it just works really well for the genre.
Yeah, we're here, as promised.
Some of the saves are a little unforgiving. There's no manual saving, and you generally only get about 3 retries from a checkpoint before you have to start the whole area again, and that made me rage occasionally. And it's not like the levels are even very big, they just feel big because it's slow going through all of it, because every action takes planning and effort.
I thought that retry system was awesome. That limited retry means you have actual threat for failing, and I think it's why this whole game works.
I guess just some of that repetition really got to me, especially since so many of the fights are quite unpredictable, so there is an element of learning what to do the first time round. And by the time I'd learned how to deal with each group of enemies in this boat section, which guy had the gun, which guy was going to get the gun, I'd used up all my retries and had to start it all over again.
Yeah, but it punishes you in almost a Dark Souls kind of way. And if you know me at all, you know I like a bit of Dark Souls punishment. Yeah. You can get extra retries by helping people around the place, but quite often you have to give up something of equal value to do that. So you have to make that choice whether it's worth it or not.
Badge, you know me, I'm always trying to take the honourable path in games and do the righteous thing and help everybody out. But here, I don't know, sometimes the cost was just too high. And this is the crux of it. I mean, survival. Everyone is on their own here, and I need every bullet I can get. You know, some people will be like, oh, my leg is broken, I just need some health. Sorry, I need it more.
Suck it up.
Move along. Part of the story is helping out a little girl called May, who you take pity on as she's roughly the same age as your own daughter. So you have her life to think about as well. But despite having her on your back, you still have to undertake some pretty nasty machete work.
My only real issue is that it tries almost too hard to funnel you down that direct path. And I know the city's in ruins, so you do have to find your best route, but quite often, if you turn around, you know, you'll find invisible walls and doors will magically swing shut behind you, and oh, I guess I now have to go down these stairs and fight these guys. I can't go back out that door that the ghost closed.
Hey, not be so hasty, okay?
There were some parts, though, where I felt completely unsure of where I was supposed to go. Like those sections where you're walking the streets through that poisonous fog and you can't see anything and your stamina's dropping and you've got to climb to safety if you could just find a climbing point. Gah!
I thought all of that was done really well. Getting that gasp of clean air just fills you with such relief.
I have to say, I loved this game, Badge. It was tough, but not unrelenting. It was also a game that really made me feel like the less I had, the more I wanted to stay alive. You know, the world felt real and dangerous, and the story was really well told.
You've seen my daughter? Where is she?
Don't worry, she's safe.
Yeah, we were just saying last week with Resident Evil Revelations how every game seems to have some AI partner helping you along, and it was nice to be not handheld and have something truly stress me out. So I'm giving this 8 out of 10 rubber chickens. I had a good time.
I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10. Good game. So, did you guess the game for this week?
It was, of course, Battle Arena Toshinen from 1995.
Yes, a mouthful of a name, but it won a lot of attention for being one of the first stand-up fighting games to ever go 3D. It had weapons and 3D characters, but the big deal was that you could step or roll towards or away from the camera. I know, towards or away. It wasn't the most playable game, but it was suitably cheesy and over the top.
Simple yet pleasurable. As for next week, it's time to take back the Earth in Mass Effect 3.
We'll also be taking a spin with the game of sin, Twisted Metal.
Sparks will fly.
And if you missed its grand unveiling a couple of weeks ago, Good Game now has its very own app.
That's right, if you have an iPhone, you can download the app for free right now. And for the younger gamers out there, this weekend over on Spawn Point, we're going to have a look at Scary Girl. So until then, gamers, Barjo out.
Hex out.
I love space. I love space so much.
Give me a space fact.
Space fact?
That's not the mass has a drag on time one. I've heard that one before from you.
Their satellites go around the Earth have to have their clocks adjusted for that. The suns turn into diamonds sometimes.
No, they
There's
don't.
giant diamonds out there.
No.
Yep.
You're just giving me bollocks.
No. And our sun's never going to supernova, which is very disappointing. I wanted to end in a bang.
I want to see some links. I want to see some proof and some theories backed up by facts.